Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode. Today, I want to talk about stress and the two different kinds of stress that cause insomnia. Because I've learned that all health issues, including insomnia, are actually caused by stress. So, the first kind of stress is not surprising. I'm referring to mental stress. So, this is rushing around all day, getting in a fight with your partner, worrying about money, anything like that. So, this kind of stress is defined as a feeling of being overwhelmed or unable to cope with the mental or emotional pressure. So, this stress is somewhat subjective because there is good stress that helps us perform, but when we see it really negatively or we feel overwhelmed and like we can't handle it, then that is when that stress becomes negative and it can break down the body over time. Now, then there's also physical stress. So, this is stress in your body. So, this can be things like being exposed to a parasite or virus, drinking too much alcohol, exercising too much. All of those kinds of daily things can also cause stress in our body. Or, yeah. And there can also be underlying health issues you don't even know about that are causing stress. So, as an analogy, I want you to think of you have a bucket, and this bucket is how much stress your body can handle. Now, let's say that your bucket's already almost full from physical stress. And again, it could be things you don't know about. You could have a parasite, you could have blood sugar imbalances, you could have hormone imbalances, you could have heavy metal toxicity, you could have liver issues. So you might not necessarily know that these things are going on in your body, but they are. And so it's creating a lot of stress. So, say your bucket is almost full. Now, any kind of mental stress you add or you're experiencing is just going to add to that bucket. And so, if your bucket's almost full from this physical stress, then the littlest bit of mental stress is going to overflow the bucket and cause symptoms like insomnia. So, a lot of things with insomnia or treatments for insomnia focus on the reducing mental stress, right? So, meditating, journaling, walking, taking time in nature, seeing a therapist. All of these things help reduce our mental stress. And that is important because the goal is to lower all the stress in the bucket, right? The less stress you have, then the more things that come up that you can handle. So, so lowering mental stress is going to help, but what's really going to help is also lowering the stress in your body that you don't even know is there. So that is what I help my clients with is okay, yes, we're going to address the mental stress. That's very important. But we also want to find out the physical stress and address that because then the overall stress in your bucket lowers. And so then when something more stressful happens, like you have a presentation the next day, or you're running late, or you're worried about something acute that has come up, then that extra bit of mental stress, it doesn't overfill your bucket. You're able to handle that because your overall stress is lowered. So let's talk about how stress causes insomnia and how it affects the body. So when you're stressed, your body releases cortisol to deal with it, right? That's our major stress hormone. It's a part of our fight or flight response. And so it's going to do things like increase blood pressure and heart rate. It moves energy away from digestion and other non-survival functions like reproduction and your immune system, and it helps you focus and concentrate. So all of these things help you survive in the moment, even though most of the time when we're stressed, we don't need to survive in the moment, right? We're not getting chased by saber-toothed tigers every day anymore. We're just dealing with the stressors of modern life. But we haven't evolved to change how our bodies deal with stress. Now, I do want to point out that this increase in cortisol actually feels good because cortisol fights inflammation. It's a natural painkiller. Again, it helps us focus and concentrate. So this is how people get addicted to stress. So if you think of maybe people in their 20s or even later who work very high pressure jobs and they say they work great under a deadline and they love the pressure, they're really relying on that cortisol surge to perform. And it does feel good to be in that state where cortisol is high. Now, of course, if cortisol is high as at night, it's going to affect your sleep, which isn't good. But during the day, it can feel really good. Now, what happens over time, though, when you're chronically stressed, let's say you do that high pressure job for a couple of decades, or you have these stressors in your body that you don't know about for a couple of decades, then your body doesn't have the resources it needs to make enough cortisol to deal with all the stress. And so what happens is that cortisol gets depleted over time. And so cortisol is out of balance if you have things like belly fat that won't go away, even with diet and exercise, if you have increased appetite and cravings, if you have mood issues, lowered immunity, low libido, low energy, low blood sugar, feeling cold all the time, having that colder body temperature, and sleep issues. All of these things are definitely signs that cortisol is out of balance in your body. And so you aren't handling stress well anymore, and it's causing the body to break down. And what happens too, so when you're constantly stressed, your body uses all of its resources to make that cortisol. And so it takes those resources away from making your sex hormones. So cortisol and your sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, are all steroid hormones. So they use the exact same resources. So when you're constantly making cortisol to deal with stress, your body stops making those sex hormones. And so then those sex hormones get out of balance. And that can cause things like hot flashes or night sweats. Again, it affects mood, weight gain in the hips, foggy thinking and memory loss, heart palpitations, aches and pains, fatigue, either hair loss or excess hair growth, and irritability. So those are just some of the symptoms that can happen when hormones get out of balance. And then that hormone imbalance causes more stress in your body. So it pretty much cascades to different parts of your body. Now, stress is going to make you more susceptible to getting sick and to having pathogens in your gut. You can get blood sugar issues even if you eat a really healthy diet. You might notice hypothyroid symptoms like cold hands and feet, fatigue, and inability to lose weight. You can develop inflammation, gut infections, liver detox issues, nutrient deficiencies, and mineral imbalance. And all of these things can cause abnormal sleep. Now, your genes determine what systems in your body break down first. So that's why not everyone has sleep issues, right? People can have all kinds of health issues, but not everyone has sleep issues. But for those of us prone to insomnia, our brain tissue is what breaks down first. And so that can cause sleep issues, brain fog, and memory problems. And if you don't do anything to get back in balance, your body is going to keep breaking down. And this is when you start developing diseases and disorders of all kinds, including chronic fatigue syndrome, cancer, and autoimmunity. So it really all starts with stress. And so if you imagine it cascading like a waterfall where there's stress, then that leads to cortisol getting out of balance. Then that's going to lead to hormone imbalance, liver health. It affects liver health, gut health, causes nutrient deficiencies, digestive issues. That leads to insomnia and other symptoms, and eventually to different diseases and disorders. So the only way to heal is to find everything that's causing stress in both your body and your mind and correct them so that you can sleep normally. And that's exactly what my program does. So I use functional lab testing to uncover the stressors in your body. And I help you perceive everyday stressors differently so that you don't have that fight or flight stress response in your body from mental stress. So if you're ready to lower stress in your body and your mind so you can sleep normally, and this is the key, then I can help. Book a call with me to talk about how you're sleeping now, how you'd like to be sleeping in a few months, and I'll tell you the steps to get there. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you next week.